Good evening, everybody. I'm hugely excited to have Kevin back. He has a amazingly viral series exposing the horrors of the Vatican, the Pope, and the Catholic Church. But tonight, he's got an absolutely huge announcement that he has saved for this channel to let everybody know this news, because you guys have really gave him so much positive feedback, comments, support. People have bought his book, and you can find the link for the books in the description. So Kevin's really appreciative of all the support and interest that has been generated on this channel. You know, it's become one of the stories that has got the most interest of everything that we're doing. And we appreciate Kevin coming back so soon again and announcing this huge news. All of Kevin's links are in the description box. And if you've got any questions for Kevin, please keep them within the remit of what we're talking about. Put them in the chat. And when Kevin has announced the news and there's various things he wants to go over first, then we will start to get the questions put to him. But I will be saving them up in the meantime. So, Kevin, what is it? You've got us all on tenterhooks. Do you want me to get this on the screen right now?
Sure, that'd be good. It's actually an announcement from the International Common Law Court of Justice. I'm an advisor to the prosecutor of the court, and based on startling new evidence, they're launching a criminal case against the present Pope Leo, Robert Prevost. And we'll get into that as I read that. But I just want to say, as a prelude to that, 2 days ago, there was an incident, and this has never happened. It shows you that we have the bad guys concerned. I had just presided at a funeral of one of our people who had died. And I was standing there at the committal service in the graveyard. Limousine pulls up. 2 guys get out. One of them walks over to me. This is when I was by myself after the service. And he looked vaguely familiar. I realized later he was a Knights of Columbus goon who had been in one of our church protests in Toronto. But he came to me and very quickly said, if you carry through with this court case, we're going to do to you what we do to children in these ceremonies. We're going to cut off parts of your body and you're going to die slowly. He then turned around and left. Okay, that's never happened before face-to-face. And so, you know, I take it seriously in that. But as he left, I called out to him, don't I know you from somewhere? Because he definitely was one of those Knights of Columbus. These are goons that came when we were doing the church occupations in 2008 that forced out a lot of this stuff in Canada. He had been one of the people at St. Michael's Catholic Church in downtown Toronto who had roughed up some of the people we were with. Carrie Luster, a Mohawk woman, had gone up and seized the pulpit and began to read the crimes of the Vatican. She got punched in the stomach and dragged out, and this guy was one of the ones who did it. Well, he was the guy who threatened me today, 17 years later, but I could tell it was the same guy. Unfortunately, I don't know his name. And unfortunately, there was nobody around to record this, but it happened. And I think it's directly related to this. So to get into this announcement, the court has announced today that they're beginning a criminal investigation. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see a picture of this young woman, Emanuela Orlandi. Scomparsa in Italian means disappeared. In 1983, she vanished. And you'll see this in all the mainstream corporate media. Her father had worked at the Vatican. She had had a long association. As a matter of fact, if you go right down to the bottom of that press release, you'll see a picture of her as a young girl standing in front of John Paul II, who in fact was somebody who had harmed her and was involved in this Ninth Circle, trading in children. The court announced today, based on new evidence, that they are launching this criminal investigation against the present Pope Robert Prevost, based on a number of things. First of all, there are 2 eyewitnesses, one within the Ninth Circle, a former cult member, and a victim survivor who has come forward, who was involved in the cult. Her parents had introduced her into the cult, and she survived. She's in hiding now somewhere in Europe. But the investigators of the court interviewed both of these people. They both claim that the present Pope Leo was involved in these Ninth Circle ceremonies on 2 occasions. First of all, September 1978, the month he was ordained a priest. He was ordained in Rome the same month that John Paul I died. Do you remember the Pope who was killed for investigating the Vatican Bank? He was found basically poisoned. And then later in June 1983, he was present when this young woman, Emanuela, was brought in and harmed and abused by these Ninth Circle members, and then shipped off. They believe she's sent off to Germany to be used in their cult network, either sacrificed or used sexually and in other ways. So the court prosecutor, let me read out the statement from the court prosecutor. Apparently, the new Pope Leo, Robert Prevost, was inducted into the Ninth Circle soon after his ordination as a priest in September 1998. The induction occurred at midnight on October 16, 1978, in a sub-basement catacomb beneath the Vatican. And I'm going to discuss where it happened because we have more evidence on that. During that initiation, the newly appointed Pope John Paul II presided at the ritual killing, dismembering, and cannibalizing of a 4-year-old Italian boy. Prevost was also present on June 22nd, when Emanuela Orlandi was kidnapped, basically, and then circulated through their network. Now, this is important. Like every Roman pontiff, Robert Prevost was chosen as pope from a select stable of Ninth Circle members who have been groomed by the cult for years and have proved their loyalty to its carnage. And the second part of this is that sources within the Vatican, once this stuff became known, they approached the court with a log. Apparently, this is a log, a journal of all the Ninth Circle ceremonies that have been held in the Vatican since 1870. And this log confirms that Prevost, the present Pope Leo, was present at these and other ceremonies in the Vatican. Now, a final point on that, if you go to the very bottom of the press release, you'll see a schematic map of what's underneath the Vatican. It's part of what's called the Vatican Grotto. These are chambers coming from the early Christian period and made into various chambers. If you look there, scroll down a little bit, you'll see Chamber U. That's called the Tomb of Lucifer. And that's where these, at least the recent Ninth Circle sacrificial ceremonies we're talking about, took place. It's interesting, it's right beneath St. Peter's Square, right where, according to legend, St. Peter was crucified upside down. And that's significant spiritually because it's inverting the energy of early Christianity to capture it and control it, just like they do in these sacrificial ceremonies. So that's the basic press release. And the timeline on this is the court is convening in 2 weeks, Sunday, June 1st. 3 months later, September 1st, the court is issuing summonses to Leo and his accomplices to be arraigned before the court. I won't say where in Europe. And the charges will be read out and the prosecution's case will begin on September 1st. So that's our basic news, but there's other things connected to that which we should get into.
Kevin, how easy, or rather how difficult is it to serve legal papers to the Pope and these people, these higher ups?
It's been done before. Don't forget, I mean, under their statutes, they can't be prosecuted, but under international law, they can be. He can be prosecuted as flesh and blood man. The common law principle going back to before Magna Carta says, be you ever so high, you are not above the law. So under international law, he can be tried as a man. And they don't have the right to refuse sheriffs from an international court who will be issuing them. Don't forget, when you serve something, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be served in person. I mean, I've had this happen to me. All you have to do is nail the summons on the door of the Vatican, or stand there with a video camera and say, we are serving the Pope here. He's served, bang. And, they wouldn't want that kind of bad publicity, which is, I think, one of the reasons they want to shut this thing down before it gets to September, right?
Indeed, yes. So does this mean that people will be arrested and there will be summonses?
Yep. We already have common law sheriffs from the first case and in subsequent years. We're also going to go to Interpol and deputize them. We want to have deputized Interpol agents and even the Roman police to accompany us when we film this, when we do all this. And they have the right. If they're summoned, they're usually given either 48 hours or 7 days to respond, to come to the arraignment, which is when the charges are read out and they have to plead. If they don't, they can be arrested for evading a legal summons. And don't forget, Ratzinger stepped down when the Spanish government threatened to have him arrested if he came to Spain when they looked at the docket of evidence we had on him. So he's vulnerable. I think that's why these threats are intensifying.
So, you know, we've got almost 1,000 people watching right now, and probably most of them didn't hear what you said at the very beginning. But Kevin has been threatened directly in person in the last week. They told him that if he doesn't stop what he's doing, they're gonna do to him what they've done to kids. Nothing nice, of course. But Kevin is persisting, and we started out with this huge news whereby the International Court, which you are, did you say you're an advisor to it, Kevin?
I'm advisor to the prosecutor's office. I'm also the North American field secretary, but you know, it's one of the reasons I'm coming to Europe in the fall to work with the court.
So how long has this court been around, and you know, what kind of successes has it achieved in the past?
Well, it came out of if folks remember, we formed the International Tribunal of Crimes of Church and State in Dublin in the summer of 2010. That's after I got locked out of Canada. When the Canadian government and churches did their cover-up and spin operation, suddenly I was banned. I couldn't be quoted in the press anymore. So right at that time, I was invited over to Europe by Irish survivors of the Church of Rome. And we set up this tribunal, and it spread quickly to 9 countries. And it formed the Common Law Court of Justice that brought the first case against Queen Elizabeth and Joe Ratzinger and, you know, AKA Pope Benedict, that caused, you know, his resignation. He hid out in the Vatican until the day he died, so he wouldn't be arrested. So it's a bona fide court of record. Any citizen in the world can set up these courts. Any group of citizens can set up what are called tribunals of conscience if the courts and the government are implicated in these crimes, which we know they are. So it gives us tremendous power, and we're hoping these things can be a springboard for people to set up in their own communities these investigations and not wait for others, you know, like me to do it. We've shown that this works, and so that should be kind of a green light for folks.
So the Vatican is worth so much money. There's so much vested interest, and you are kind of like rocking that boat. Aren't you afraid? You know, you've told us about the assassins, the intelligence, the police. They're a law unto themselves. And any entity with that amount of money can pretty much have someone eliminated. Aren't you, you know, are you taking extra caution or?
Well, yeah, we have certain kind of protocols we follow, but you know, if they want to kill you, they'll kill you. And their main ally is not the cop out there, but the cop in your head. He's telling you, don't do this, you know, something might happen to you. I passed that long ago where I was self-concerned in that way, because I realized because it can happen to any of us at any time, not just from a killer, but fate. You know, we could drop dead from a stroke tomorrow. You have only this moment. And if you stay focused on that, it's very difficult for them to stop one person, let alone a whole group of people working together on this stuff. The difficulty I've found is that people aren't coming together on this, and they're not stepping up and taking these actions. That's the real enemy, not these turkeys in Rome who are helpless. If we all stood together and took action, they would fall tomorrow. And I have to keep that in mind all the time. And I'm thinking all the time of those children right now who are being carved up and, like, you know, a side of beef by these people and used and killed, you know, so they want to take me and cut my nose and ears off. Well, so what? So I'm dead. The point is others have to carry this on. And that's the point we keep trying to get people to move from that fear and self-concern mode into, we're not going to be stopped now. Like a mother, the mother's instinct or the father's instinct to protect their children, it's inherent in us. We need to tap into that and we'll be unbeatable.
So I think, Kevin, you know, you're fully informed about all this, but I think it would perhaps be a service to the viewers if I could read this page that you've sent me so that they can understand the details in full. And is that okay? And you can stop me anytime if there's anything you'd like to add.
Sure. I just want to flag one thing though before you do that, Shaun.
Yeah.
There's a whole spiritual aspect of these Vatican ceremonies which we should explore today, and it has to do with where they're being held and how they're happening. It's very much related to demonic energy sources, and I did want to get into that today. Just anyway, so we can do that after you, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, it's the harvesting of the energy, isn't it? From the you know, an inversion of what's good, and war and the horror and all that stuff. They get off on it basically. All right, so I'll read this. So the title is. Do you want me to put it on the screen, Kevin, or should I just read it?
This is the press release?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you like. I mentioned a bunch of it already, but
I think we need to go over it more slowly, though, because you understand it all thoroughly. There's a lot of vernacular. There's some terms we might have to go over again with people for people, including myself. All right. So headline is International Court to investigate Pope Leo's complicity in the ritual unaliving of kids and the disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi. And then it starts, eyewitnesses saw Leo Robert Prevost at the 9th Circle sacrificial ceremonies as early as September 1978. And there's a picture of her. Rome and Brussels, the court that prosecuted Pope Benedict and forced him from office is launching a criminal lawsuit against Pope Leo, charging him with complicity in unaliving, criminal conspiracy, crimes against humanity. The case against the Bishop of Rome is based on new evidence linking him to the ritual R-wording and unaliving of kids as a newly ordained priest and to the torture and disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi on summer solstice of 1983. Investigators with the International Common Law Court of Justice have interviewed a former participant in the Ninth Circle cult, as well as a victim survivor of its grisly rituals. Both witnesses claim that Robert Prevost participated in the unaliving of kids as part of his induction into the cult. So, we've probably got a lot of people on here tonight, Kevin, who are not familiar with the Ninth Circle. I know you've explained it several times, but could you just explain it one more time, please?
Yeah, it's formed, we believe, by the Jesuits in the 16th century. It's a child sacrificial cult, operates within the Catholic Church. It's intergenerational, so there's prominent families who are part of this. They raise their children in it, usually sacrifice their firstborn in order to, move up the hierarchy of the cult. And it operates also as a blackmailing agency. We've had survivors like Toast Nienhuis, Anne-Marie von Blienberg say that Anne-Marie was a lawyer who was brought to what she was told was going to be a dinner. Turns out they were sacrificing and killing a child there. And, they blackmailed her and controlled her that way. So it has political purposes, spiritual ones. You've talked about this kind of energy vampirism, but also it's very lucrative. It's part of the human trafficking network all over the planet. The Catholic Church is embedded in and profits hugely from. Again, I mentioned that in my book, Dethroning Rogue Power, that we've sold over 700 copies of this in this month alone, if you can believe it. So it's been a huge success. So that's kind of in a nutshell what the Ninth Circle is all about.
Great. And we've got almost 1,500 watching live. Links for Kevin's books are in the description. Let's get that number up to 1,000. So Kevin's just explained the Ninth Circle. And the court has obtained corroborating Vatican archival evidence consisting of a log of all the details of all Ninth Circle ceremonies held in Rome since 1870. Oh my goodness. This record confirms Prevost's presence at these events in September 1978 and June 1983. According to the court prosecutor, one second, apparently the new Pope Leo was inducted into the Ninth Circle soon after his ordination as a priest, September 1978, the same month that the former Pope John Paul I was unalived in the Vatican. Prevost's induction into the cult occurred at midnight on October 16, 1978, in a sub-basement catacomb beneath the Vatican. During that initiation, the newly appointed Pope John Paul II presided at the ritual unaliving and, let's just say, some horrific things to a 4-year-old boy. Prevost was also present on June 22nd, 1983, when Emanuela Orlandi was disappeared by Vatican agents, R-worded, and horrible things done by Ninth Circle members, and then taken to Germany, were transported and possibly disappeared. Like every Roman pontiff, Prevost was chosen as Pope from a select stable of Ninth Circle members who have been groomed by the cult for years and have proved their loyalty to its carnage. In addition, the court will be investigating Pope Leo's links to the Catholic-run child transportation and unaliving cults in Canada, America, Peru, Argentina, including those connected to the deceased Pope Francis. Jorge B. The court will convene on Monday, June 2nd, 2025, under the law of nations and with the participation of international jurists. That same week, the court prosecutor will present lawful summonses to Pope Leo and his accomplices to appear before the court for arraignment when the trial begins on Monday, September 1st, 2025. Regular public and media briefings on the case will be issued by the court during the summer, and prior to the trial's commencement, the court is offering rewards and immunity from prosecution to any persons with information or evidence that leads to the criminal conviction of Robert Prevost, Pope Leo, under international law. Court can be contacted at issued by the press office of the International Common Law Court of Justice on Saturday, May 17th, 2025. And then we've got the schematic of the Vatican grottos and the site of Ninth Circle sacrificial ceremonies involving each pope since at least 1870. And these unalivings that Kevin's talked about occurred in Chamber U, which is called the Tomb of Lucifer. Yeah. There it is, right there in the middle.
Do you mind if I say something about that? Yeah, just jump in.
Yes, please do. Please do, yeah.
First of all, the date 1870, if you were, I don't know, many people know this, but that year, the Pope in Rome declared himself infallible, which means he's incapable of error. He kind of one-upped God, right? He said, I'm incapable of error, right? That year, Garibaldi had overthrown the Vatican, basically. The Vatican didn't exist until Mussolini reestablished it in 1929. But he got the guarantee. Everyone in the church suddenly believed he was infallible. So that obviously encouraged them to say, okay, we can go ahead with these Ninth Circle ceremonies, come out of the closet because I can't be touched now. And we think it's definitely correlated. But the interesting thing, Shaun, they have a log about all these ceremonies. And we've apparently it's a very old form of Latin and still being translated, but we have already found the name of this guy, Prevost, already in here at these two ceremonies we mentioned. So, you know, in court, this is almost irrefutable evidence, including with the eyewitnesses, you know.
So Angelique wants to know, is that the tomb they opened at Christmas?
No, this is something else. As a matter of fact, like, don't forget, anything you see in the press, it's being swabbed. A couple of things on this. You know, you mentioned, like in the press release, there's a stable of safe names who can be chosen as Pope. They do this in any election with any government too. Call it a red list. Safe people are on a red list. Unacceptable candidates are on a black list and they can never be elected. But the safe people are on a red list, and those are the candidates you can choose. Whether it's Trump, Biden, Robert Prevost, they're all safe. In the papacy, you're on the red list if you participate in the Ninth Circle. And then it doesn't matter who you elect, you're electing the Ninth Circle. And, so that's one of the damning features of this, where it condemns the whole institution, not just bad apples, right? That's the good point.
So Annie's wondering whether these Ninth Circle events coincide with Davos events or political get-togethers. I imagine there's more history in the timings of the Ninth Circle than these contemporary political events, isn't there, Kevin?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it goes back centuries. And it's based, of course, on ancient Roman sacrificial cult. We've talked about that before, where the Romans would sacrifice children for the crops, in early spring and that. So, I mean, these are old practices, but they have a whole aspect here where they've got a lot of political and financial power behind them too. We talked in the last show about China's role in all this, and the importance of the Vatican Bank in shifting the world's finances towards the East, to the Chinese sphere. So that all comes into this as well.
Okay. Now, the Pope, if he gets served, is he just likely to ignore this and just hope it goes away? Is that the strategy that these popes have taken in the past?
Well, it's a dumb strategy, because what that does under law is you're not contesting what's being said about you. It's how King Charles I in England had his head chopped off. He refused to plead. So the parliamentary court said, okay, you're not contesting what we're saying about you. You waged a war of tyranny against your own people. If Prevost doesn't contest what we're charging him openly with, that he's involved in these nefarious, murderous activities, then it's a tacit admission of guilt. And in a lot of court trials, criminal court trials, at that point, he can be found immediately guilty as charged and sentenced. So they're caught between a rock and a hard place. If they ignore it, they're admitting to it. If they don't ignore it and respond, they're admitting to the legitimacy of our court, and they have to be involved in it. So it's a win-win for us. And that's why we keep saying to people, take these actions and you'll see the kind of power you have, right?
You know, a few people are asking for details of what's in the diary of the 9th Circle events, but we've got to be very careful, Kevin, with our language. We've got to kind of like say unaliving and things like that.
Well, here's the thing about, I just want to one point legally about that. You know, in the US Constitution, First Amendment, they talk about prior restraint, which means nobody can tell somebody what to say or how to phrase it in a legal context. If they try to do that, whoever is imposing these censorship rules on what happens on YouTube or whatever, they have to come into court and show just cause why they're telling people not to use certain words. I don't think they want that. And you can't be shut down for using certain words. It's called prior restraint. It's against the law to do that. They only do it because they think people will be intimidated and start cooperating. We can't censor our words. That's what people in tyranny, that's the first step towards tyranny, not saying things as they are. Like in my work in Canada early on, these places, you know, these death camps were called residential schools. Well, they weren't schools. You know, they were places where children were dying and being killed. So, you know, nobody ever sued me over that. In 30 years, I've never been sued for using those words in Canada. So why would it happen to you? They know very, you know, if their lawyers and censors are listening to this right now, they know very well that it's true what I'm saying, and they're not going to come down. They just rely on people's spirit to cooperate. So I'm not telling you what to do and not to do, Shaun. I feel the need to share that with people because it's a fundamental issue of our right to say things as they are, right?
Yeah, I agree with all of that, but I've lost the channel twice, and it's not people, it's AI. So AI is watching every single word, and when certain words cross thresholds, it shuts you down. That's
Right.
the modern world. That's the modern world we're in. That's the reality.
Temporarily they could shut you down, but at some point, whoever owns that AI would have to appear in a court of law and show why they did that. Now, you always have to weigh what you're going to lose in the short run with what you're going to lose. You know, I mean, I've been shut down so often, but I'm still here. And by being shut down, I became more popular, and people are saying, "Well, what's going on with this guy?" I mean, who knows, Shaun? You might get more followers by being shut down. Like, you know, but I feel the need to say that. I never tell people what to do or say, but I'm just letting you know lawfully we're standing on solid ground, right?
So who was Emanuela Orlandi?
If you got a lot of media exposure back in the 80s, her brother Powell, I forget how to say it in Italian. He's led this campaign for many years. Her dad worked in the Vatican. She went to a music lesson somewhere in the Vatican, and she just vanished. June 22nd, 1983. It was solstice, summer solstice, which is not surprising. That's a satanic high point. And for years,